Okay, great. Thanks everyone that's joined. So what we're going to do is do a fairly short, high-level kind of overview of rate cards feature. And what we'll intend to do is anyone that's interested, or maybe all of you, maybe follow up with you after this webinar at some point, just to go into a bit more detail, because I appreciate every company is slightly different, with slightly different needs. Hopefully this will give you enough overview to give you a feel for it. Also worth mentioning, we do have the option to ask some questions. So via the chat, I think we've turned sound off because we don't want too many voices at once. But on the chat there, if you want to ask any questions as we go along, I'll try and answer them at the end. Or if we can't answer them now, we'll kind of follow up with you separately on that side. And again, I'll come back at the end of it to kind of answer questions and tell you how we can follow up and how to contact me if you want to have a look more detail. So let's get started into it. So I'm going to show some live stuff, obviously, but just a bit of context, a bit of background. As you all probably know, MyMobileWorkers historically, our main focus really was around the kind of operations side of things. So forcing process, getting job packs done, getting photos, signatures, prove what you did, etc. And we do all that, as you know. But more and more last couple of years, we've tried to complete sort of the circle almost of the job. So from kind of job creation, planning, getting the job done, and kind of the area which we're going to touch on today, obviously, the two kind of final areas to round that off was the kind of invoicing and the auditing side of things. So we do a bit of both, but today, obviously, we're looking around the quote and invoicing rates side of things. We are not necessarily trying to replace Sage or Zero or anything like that. We know everyone will have that kind of thing in place and does lots of stuff. This is more about, which you'll see, be able to quote cost and do a lot more within MyMobileWorkers and be able to report a bit more around things like profitability, with the potential for that then to report and go off to your accounting system. So yeah, so we'll get to the product stuff. I mean, cover off these things we go through really. Looking at profit margins on jobs, how we can help with that. Rate cards, consistent pricing, simplifying that for your users. And also we'll look at how we create a quote and also invoice, which is very much the same thing in MW, the way it's done on that side. So let's come off that then. Let's go straight onto the product side of it and get into the nitty gritty of it. So we're in MyMobileWorkers here, which is a screen I hope you all recognise. And I'm sure some of you have spotted down the side, we've got a rates feature these days. So let's start with the actual rate cards themselves, maybe. So what we can do, so how it tends to work is, there's probably a couple of ways of doing it. For some people, you might just have a set of rates, not many, but some people will have a fixed set of rates. It's just what we do. That's our set of rates, a standard set for everyone. But that's not that common. More often, what people end up having is a certain set of rates per customer, agreed differently per customer. And that's what that is really. So you might have a standard set here of kind of anything that side. But more specifically, you might set individual rates up for each customer. So again, we've got Mersey Water one here, we've got their list. You might then have London Gas here with different list. And this can be applied to any kind of industry and any usage really. So this example I often use is more highways type stuff, but equally, anything you do, a cleaning service one look a bit different. That'll be more about type of cleaning you're doing. You might have an engineer's one, different things. Again, I'm sure you get the idea. This is all very much tailored to your process and what you need on that side. And again, if we follow up after this, we can get into that a bit more. Let's just use my example one that I use a lot for now. So just explain the kind of data we've got. It's pretty straightforward. You've got what the rate is, the name of it. You've got an extra detail field, and that often for the quotes and things, you might add an extra note with it on the quote. It's often used there a little bit. And then the other things is a type of rate. So again, like a lot of what we do, it's very customizable. So we've got some default types that we create. Day, you might charge something by a day or by a night or by an hour or amount of miles or a fixed. But it's worth mentioning you can add other things of your own to that list, depending on what's relevant for you. So we've covered lots of things there that people would quote on, but it's very customizable. So you can change all that on that there. So what you've got then is you've got your name, you've got the kind of type, and then these two are obviously important. So price is the price that's going to appear on the quote, the price for your customer. And cost price then is essentially an indication of the cost to you. Now, I appreciate that a million different things could go into that if you want it to be absolutely 100%. I think what we call that cost price is an indicative cost price, because the idea of this really is as much to flag up potential issues than it is to be absolutely kind of perfect as far as cost. You'll see it as we go through. It's as much about giving you indications if we make any money on that job or not, and flagging up in red potentially where there's the problem on that side of it. So you've got name of the item, rate type, price and cost, and a rate code as well. So again, if this is being pulled from, which is worth mentioning really, we can create these manually. We can kind of paste them in off a spreadsheet to create them. So if you've got these set up somewhere else in Xero or Sage or something, we can download things out and it's easy to set up that way and you can edit it then. Or if you've got a standard rate card, you can just copy it and then edit it, if that makes sense. So you have your standard one, you copy it for a different customer and then put their price in. Very easy to set up. And again, if we get into implementing it with you, we'll go into that a lot more. So first step is setting up your rate cards in there. So hopefully that makes sense. So to kind of show how they get applied in MyMobileWorkers then, maybe the best way to create a quote is kind of a nice way of showing it potentially. So yeah, having those rate types does make MyMobileWorkers a bit easier to quote with really. So creating a quote in MyMobileWorkers, well, a quote is very much linked to a job. I mean, they're the same thing essentially. You have your quote, that gets converted into the job. So you're not having separate quotes, separate jobs, separate. It's all one thing in the end. So it's nice and easy to use, hopefully, on that side. So right, we need to create a quote for someone. So we select a job and we set again, whichever workflow it is you're using. Now, because this is a quote at this point, not a job, although it will become a job later, we'll need some basics. It needs a unique number. And because it's a quote, we don't need users in yet or requirements or anything, or potentially it could be requirements. But for now, all we need is the quote number essentially and who the job's for. So I'm going to use my Mersey Water one again for you there. So we don't need address. Well, put the address in if you need it. We don't need users and all the rest of it, a date for job, because at this point it's just a quote. So we've got the customer in there, and then what we would do, the extra step then is we'd add the rates for this quote. So we add from rate card. So what that will do is those rate cards we can set up. So because the customer for this job is Mersey Water, it could be that it only shows Mersey Water's rate cards. So again, you can't let your guys go off and click all sorts. It will only show the rate card for that customer there. It shows this one as well, because what we can also do is make rate cards accessible for everyone. You might have, I don't know, a specials and extras tab that just is always there for additional things and that there. But the key point is, if you've got a customer for this job, it will only show their rate card here. And if we click on it, then we pick whatever we want from there. So again, this is a bit of a highways traffic one, but I'm sure you understand it will be your rates in here for that customer. We add whatever to it. So we add those to it on that there. Now, because it's from a rate card here, it's kind of grade them out because the idea is your admin staff aren't necessarily changing these. It's a fixed set of rates. There are some settings and things around that which I can get into if we talk on a more individual basis. The idea is they're fairly fixed because they're from a rate card. But in saying that, if there's anything additional, I know a lot of guys you work with will have their main rates, but there'll always be a little weird extra service, or a little rubbish collection or something like that. You're also able to add what we call an ad hoc rate, so just a more manual one as well for that to go into the quote. So it's nice and flexible. We're always about trying to keep you working, not stopping you from doing things. But we've got the customer, we've got the rates. All we need to do now is we create a job, and what it will do is when it pops up, it will say create quote. And all that's going to do is pull the customer and those rates into this template. So it's got the customer details, all this stuff we can set up to be filled in, etc. But the important point is it's pulled those rates from the job into this template from here. You can add notes on it, whatever you want to do, whatever it might be. So once we're happy with it here, we can add things to it, etc. But at the point we're happy with it, all you do is save it. And that will then, within that kind of shell of a job we built before, enter that quote in there. And the sort of more eagle-eyed of you might have noticed what we can do as well is, again, it's up to you really, but what we can do is anything that's raised a quote, we can instantly put that into a quote status in the system. So in your portal then, you'll be able to filter down by quote, anything that's in quote, anything that's live, etc., which I'm sure you all understand now. So don't have to, but we can do that. Anything there's a quote, it can create that into a quote status, first of all. So we've got the quotes. So different ways to do it. You can just open it up, and obviously we can put your branding on, and we can change the whole layout of it if needs be, but it's fairly standard sort of quote layout. So you've got that there. You can download it, send to the customer, or from within MyMobileWorkers, you can send it straight away from here, and we can put your sort of server details in, etc. So it comes from you. Or if any of you use a customer portal or have interest in the customer portal, there is also the ability for customers to access this on the customer portal. We can notify them potentially. But however you've done it, at the point the customer says, yep, okay, I'm happy with that, you can, or not, accept or reject it. So obviously reject it, cancel it off. If they accept it, right, accepted the quote, what that can do is then, that has now converted that to a different status. So this, in this case, it's put it to a live job, a new job, but it might put it into whatever status you want. It might change it to a planning status. So it goes from quote to planning automatically. Again, doesn't have to. It's all about settings. So, but in an ideal world, it would create a quote straight away. Once it's accepted, it changes it to a live job or a planning job in your system. Then you don't have to create anything new. You then just go in and you can edit it and you can then add all the rest of it, customer details, requirements, etc., just like you would with a normal job. So it keeps everything as one single job rather than a separate quote, separate job. It's all part of one thing, keeps it all in there. So quite a nice, easy way, hopefully, of kind of create a job with the basics, add in your rates, create the quote, accepting that. That's all part of the job, and you carry on with planning it from that side. And invoicing, in a sense, works exactly the same way. So you do a quote, do the job. Let's click on any of these really. So I've got a completed job here. So job comes back completed. What you can do is, well, the job's completed now. We've got all the details back here. And actually, now the job's being done in the real world, there might be things to add to the rates. So actually, that one wasn't happened, or that one we need to add something else because we did an extra service whilst we were there. So before this kind of goes for invoicing or reporting, you do have the ability with the right permissions. And it's worth mentioning as well on this, your mobile users never see any of this. And it's worth clarifying that because people sometimes worry if they're seeing profit margins or anything like that. And it would be lovely to get that profit margin. I understand everyone's probably saying that under their breath at the minute. It's just example data, but none of this will be visible to mobile users on that side, so you don't have to worry about that there. And again, lots of it's permission led. You don't have to let every single office user access it. You can pick the people that need to see this. Your operations people might just do the job. You might have finance people that need to see this. It's all very much customizable. And again, if a follow-up, we can get into the specifics for your business. But the point is, you check the job, you might add additional things, and then invoicing works exactly the same way, really. You can create an invoice from that. Again, same as a quote, adds the items, you save it, etc. from there. And from a reporting point of view, I mean, there are some more specific reports you can have, but when you've got some better data than I have on here, but what you can do is, on the jobs list view, if you've got access and permission, you can start to display these things however you want to see on your jobs list. So you've got one view. So you might filter it down by quotes and be able to see all the kind of top cost and profit and margin, or whatever you want to see on there, just from selecting those columns in the column picker. So again, up to you what you need, but it's all very much kind of customizable. You can filter it down and you can download that out from there. The other thing to mention on this is this at the I've shown you there, just for simplicity purposes, really, to give you the general feel for it, was on an individual job basis. But it's worth mentioning, and again, if anyone wants to go into this in more detail, we can also do this at project level. So if you've got, lots of you will use projects to manage kind of big jobs, as we call it. So anyone that doesn't know what a project is, it's just a way of kind of grouping together lots of individual days into a bigger job. So maybe you've got a job that runs over a month, you're doing 15 different visits in that month. A project's a way of grouping those into one bigger heading, essentially. So it is possible here as well, when you create a project, do the quote at purely a project level outside of the jobs, or book the jobs in, add in the rates as we have done there, but then report and quote an invoice as an overall project, as if it was one big job. So for example, you might have a job that's on 6 months, a project, but you only want to invoice this month. You can filter that kind of thing down and just see the rates that have been done for this month, filter from there as well. So again, it's probably getting too far for this webinar, but if anyone wants to go into that, have a look at it, because I know a lot of people do use projects. Again, I'm more happy to have an individual chat with you and show you that. But a job level, or we can group them together and do it at a project level and invoice it whenever you need to on that side. So that's it really for the height size. It's relatively straightforward. I think another point to make maybe is, I'm sure some of you are thinking it or maybe have asked it, I can't see the questions yet, but this obviously as well gets us a little closer or makes life a lot clearer, I think, maybe, with potentially integrating this with your current system, so Xero or Sage. Because I say, we're not trying to replace that. We're not trying to be one of those. Everyone's got it. We were just more a way of being able to cost things up and be able to send that off. So because it's more standardized with your rates, we can match rates up, match customers up. It does make that process a little bit clearer as well. So happy to discuss that with anyone afterwards on that side. So as far as the demo of what it does, nice and straightforward. Create your rate cards in the system, very customizable. Book a job, create a quote using those rates or invoice from those rates, and be able to kind of report and get a feel then for things like profit margin on a job and flag things up in red if you think they might potentially losing money on that side of it. So I think maybe then we can go to some questions potentially, Abby, if there have been any.
Yeah, there's been a couple. So can you add ad hoc lines as discount lines?
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so you maybe so maybe a percentage or a discount. So you can certainly add ad hoc lines. I'm just trying to pick a job here which has got nothing on. So I would guess it wouldn't necessarily discount. It's a good question. Maybe it would. If you added that as a, I don't know is the answer. I don't know if you can add minus ones. That's a very good question. I might need to come back to you on that one. Well, you could add an ad hoc rate, but I don't know if you can add minus. That is an excellent question. If you know who that's from, Abby, let me find out and come back to that one because it's not one I've actually played around with.
Yeah, no problem.
Potentially, you can certainly add a rate for those sort of things, and there are ways on the quote as well to apply percentage discounts and things like that on the quote itself. Whether you could do that as a rate, I don't know, but I suspect there's probably another way we can do that without it being a rate on that side.
Great, thank you. We've had another question around the currency is in GBP. Can we change it to euros and add different VAT rates?
Yes, we can. So I think on the quote itself, if I find the quote that I did, that one. Let's go back to the actual. Let's create a. Let's just create a new one instead. So on the template here, you've got those three options at the minute, which hopefully covers off most of anyone we work with. We can default that, I'm sure, to be something that side. And then you're able here to manually change the VAT rate as well. Again, I'm sure we could potentially default that for someone in the settings, that side. Yeah, so those options are there for everything. You can change those on there. But again, we can check if we can default those for you, particularly guys in Ireland, I guess, who want to change that.
Great. Thank you. We had a question from Tim around quoting and invoicing at project level, but then he's said that you've answered that question already. So that's a good one.
Yeah.
And we've had some feedback around that the projects are a great idea and that they'd love some more info on that. So obviously
Oh, great.
Matt will be around and then he'll be able to give some more information after the
Yeah.
webinar.
Yeah, projects is anyone that doesn't use it already, I always kind of try and get people on because I think it's a great way of grouping things together, and it gives you lots of other options off the back of it to report as a big job rather than individual days. Yeah, great. I could go through it now, but if it's a separate webinar, maybe that we need to do projects, which is probably not a bad idea. But yeah, I will follow up with everyone anyway. But yeah, absolutely. If there's more specific things there around projects, happy to discuss on that side.
Great. And that's all the questions we have. I mean, obviously we have 7 minutes left in this webinar. Matt and I are happy to stick around for a couple more minutes if anyone's got any more questions
Yeah,
or anything like that. We can send the recording afterwards. So if your colleagues weren't able to make it today, we can send that through. It's no problem. And we also want to do more of these webinars. I think ideally we'd like to do them quarterly. So if anyone has any features that they'd like to know more information on or anything like that, just give us a shout and I'm sure Matt will be very happy
yeah, 100%.
to yeah to do those webinars.
Great.
Okay, we've actually had oh yeah, I can see that Anne, your question, so no problem. I'll pass that on to Matt. And Tim's mentioned around sort of the integration to Zero. So I'll get those details over to you, Matt, after the
Yeah,
webinar.
great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll follow this up. And again, I mean, integration wise, you probably we can sync customers up, we can sync rates up. That's kind of most of it hopefully done. But yeah, every company is slightly different. Every company, the difficulty is that every company manages things a little bit different. So I'll be following up with everyone directly anyway. Is that, yeah, a Tim I've spoken to obviously about this. Yeah, so definitely we'll follow up with everyone.
Great. Okay. Well, I don't think any more questions are coming in. So, yeah, like Matt said, get in touch with him if you have any more questions. Um, yeah.
Just for me, yeah. Obviously, my email's there. You've probably all got it anyway. Hopefully, we'll follow up with you. And yeah, and I think as Abby said, great points. Anything more specific? Do you want to have a chat about in MW that's not part of this? We do webinars, or I'm happy to give you a direct chat about it. Obviously, it's what I'm here for. So feel free to shout up for anything. But thanks everyone for their time.